Let me guess, you learned the pentatonic scale years ago. Maybe it was the first scale you've ever learned. You memorized the pattern, you started improvising, and you started sounding like an actual guitar player. And honestly, that was a huge breakthrough. But then, something happened. Years later, you're still playing the same shape, the same bends, the same exits, the same entrances. Does that sound familiar? Most players aren't really improvising anymore. They're just replaying muscle memory, like what I just did. So let me show you this trick that I personally love. It really helped me break out of the pattern of playing the pattern, the scale pattern, right, the same way every time. But instead of learning an entirely new pattern, we're gonna expand the one that you already know. And actually, we're just gonna add 3 notes right here. And it may not look like it now, but these 3 notes will create entirely new pathways through this scale pattern. Now this familiar pentatonic pattern right here, we call the G pattern because it actually fulfills the shape of an open G chord. That's a reference to the cage system. You don't have to know what any of that means. Know that we're in the key of A minor, but the actual shape, the pattern itself is called the G pattern because it's shaped like a G chord. It's not in the key of G, it's just shaped like a G chord. We're in the key of A minor. So I mentioned that because we call this addition of the 3 notes the G plus 3. It's a little easier to remember, right? So we have the G pattern, right, in A minor, and then plus 3 notes right here. So where we end on the G pattern here, we're essentially taking this part of the G pattern, right, that is shaped just like this, and then bringing it up 2 frets, and there you have it. Now, before we dive into these 3 notes, I want you to notice something. They're sitting just outside of your normal comfort zone. That's important because the moment you reach for them, you actually break out of those normal patterns of movement that you've built up here in this part of the scale. And how you actually want to play these notes in context, let's say, is like this. Because when you play these 3 notes, you can't really play them like you do up and down with the pattern, right? Because they're kind of weird. You kind of have to play them like that. Instead, you connect to those notes through the original pattern. So if you're walking through it like this, right? This is all A minor pentatonic, right? We didn't add any notes that made it a different scale. We didn't add any notes that changed the key, that changed the tonal center. None of that stuff changed. We're still in A minor pentatonic, and yet now it's sounding more musically like A minor pentatonic and not like we're just reciting the scale. And so immediately, new phrases start to appear, new directions appear, new ideas appear. And believe it or not, this is actually one of the biggest reasons why a lot of players plateau. The scale itself isn't limiting them, but it's their own habits that are. And these 3 notes interrupt those habits. And the second you interrupt a habit, creativity finally has room to join the party. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to play these 3 notes that we just learned, right? In the context of the pattern, like this, right? So what we're doing is we're playing the 3 notes, but we're adding a couple notes from the original G pattern, just to make it a little more ergonomic, let's say. And it kind of looks like a house we're building here. That's kind of the shape you can think of it as. And for now, let's just focus on that. This is meant to introduce you to playing those 3 notes in context of the pattern. But we're gonna have a little interactive jam session. I'm gonna throw on a backing track. It's gonna be in the key of A minor, and every one of these notes that you play, every stinking one of them is gonna work, right? So don't be afraid to play them, to really overplay them, right? Just get comfortable with using those notes, and then we'll just kind of pass it back and forth. I'll start us off, and I'll let you know when it's your turn. We'll just do a few passes back and forth. What do you say? All right, and away we go. All right, your turn. Give me something. No pressure, just groove with it. Play 1 note at a time. Get a feel for everything. Okay, here I come. All right, your turn. Come on. more for me and then one more for you. Here we go. All right. Bring it on home. Come on. Yeah. That's fun. All right, little Santana-esque action going on, right? That's one thing I love about backing tracks like this is they kind of inspire something you don't typically feel when you're playing a typical 12-bar blues, let's say, right, in A minor. We can just kind of be a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more vocal with it. And that's one thing I especially want you to keep in mind with playing in a small box like this, right? You're able to be a lot more vocal with your notes, because think about what a singer does. A singer works with a few notes and makes them sound powerful, right? It's not like a singer is just singing 16th notes or 32nd notes, right? At least not all of them. For the most part, when we think of our favorite moments when we hear a singer, it's not a lot of notes. It's a handful of notes, right? So it's the same kind of idea we want to approach here. It's just making a few notes really count, right? And so this is a great way to introduce yourself to that style of playing. And maybe you notice that your fingers wanted to return to familiar territory, right? But I wanted you to keep paying attention to those new notes and let that shape feel a little awkward, right? Because that's where the new ideas really come from. And as you get more comfortable and familiar with using these 3 new notes, then start to reintroduce yourself back into the G pattern, right? So you can start doing stuff like this, like maybe starting off here like we just did. You know, and you'll start to seamlessly find new pathways right in and out of that pattern just by way of having those 3 additional notes. And believe me, that's going to be plenty for you to chew on so you can get used to breaking up those old habits and start creating new ones that are going to encourage more musical decision making. Now you may be wondering, okay, this works in A minor pentatonic, but what about the other keys? What about the major keys? Can you add those 3 notes? And the answer is yes, you absolutely can. And as a matter of fact, I happen to have something for you that's going to show you exactly how to apply what we learned today to all of the keys, major, minor, and beyond. And this is it right here. I introduce you to the most game-changing lesson you have ever encountered in your life. This is how to instantly solo in any key. It's a simple system that's going to first show you how to find every key on your fretboard in record time using just 1 string, and it's going to show you how to connect scale patterns across the entire neck, much like what we went over today. But imagine being able to do that over all the keys, major and minor, with comfort and confidence. Oh, and have I mentioned that it's free? Because it is. It is 100% yours, 100% free just for hanging out with me today. All you got to do is click here to claim your free copy, or check the link that I left for you in the description box, or if you happen to be watching this on TV, scan the QR code with your phone. And just to reiterate, sometimes the biggest breakthrough isn't about learning something completely new. It's in finding new ways to see what was already there.